Okay. Mm-hmm.
Hi, this is John Frost. It's the Sustainability Action Workshop, and this is being recorded. And raise your hand if you're all comfortable with this being recorded today. And we're going to remember not to say anything which is company sensitive or anything which is specific to anyone in personally. The topics we'd like to talk about today are the quick wins that we can take in business, which might include our discussion of how we get to the office, anything to do with transport. Another one is, for example, timers on your electrical equipment in the office. Also choosing a more eco-friendly energy supplier. And on top of that, I'm hoping that Steve is going to talk about the multiplier effect on a sort of a higher level, multiplier effect of where we make our business investments and where we get our business financing from. And the aim today is to actually write down the steps that we can take today as far as possible and as specific as possible to get a quick win in a day or two. So that being said, any questions on that, or where shall we start? So
John, I'm also just keen to agree what the potential scope of future meetings is. So things like we might have plans. I know Steve Shelley, for example, Steve's not here today, but Steve's got his Sacred Nature initiative. We've got a project with some land up in North Yorkshire, and you know what we can as individuals do to leave a positive legacy, but also what we can do from the perspective of a pension holder and what you can do with your pensions to sort of think a little bit outside.
Yeah, that's absolutely spot on. It's any action that you have taken that has worked, or any action that you see yourself doing that looks like it will work. I've just seen a post. I've just seen a post come up from our good friends Peter Moulam at PJ Taste, and he's just put up a post about he has made an executive decision to source some of his ingredients, pulses and flowers from wild ed farms. So low chemical, low pesticide, low fertilizer based farms. Now, so again, that comes within the remit because it's an action he's taken. I think he said that the ingredients are slightly more expensive, but he's placing environment maybe over a slight drop in profits there.
It wouldn't be the best way then is to invite Peter along then.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, basically, I think it would be awesome if we got guest speakers, 10 minutes to say, what have you actually done? But it's got to be like coaching. It's got to be future focused. I don't want to get into any debates about whether climate change is real. I just want to get straight to anything that's to do with genuine sustainability moving forward. So that's energy, environment, but so basically it's not just energy, it's to do with your suppliers, how good they are on environment, toxicity, renewable sustainability, and your clients. Can you help your clients in that way as well? Yes, Steve.
I was just going to say, so and the other thing I'm really keen to sort of emphasize is the positives of making change. So again, I come back to John and John seeing it and the cycling side of things. So obviously in the meeting we just had, Martin told the story around his experience in London this week, and I've seen similar kind of microaggressions, not so microaggressions between kind of cyclists and road users, but actually what I've also experienced as a cyclist in Sheffield is, and it's difficult if you've never cycled in a city, but you cycle, someone's going the other way on a bike, and you just give them a smile.
Yeah.
And it's a lovely thing. There's a real kind of community sense that you don't. I mean, imagine being in a car. I mean, since when do you drive past somebody going the other way and you smile at them? And when you drive in a car, it just doesn't happen. But there's a real kind of community and there's a freedom and a kind of liberation with cycling. And I think maybe if Peter came from PJ Taste and talked about his local sourced ingredients, he'll be speaking to some of those growers. He'll be visiting the fields, and presumably it'll also taste better.
Yeah, and also, Steve, regarding the tone, it's all the positive, to get the positive tone. Morning, Sarah. Please raise your hand if you're happy with this being recorded. Okay. Okay, cool. So just don't say anything which is commercially sensitive for you. Okay. So yeah, positive. And again, this is all to do with marketing your business. My feeling is there's a Forbes study going round that 70% of clients and customers say that the ethical or the green credentials of the business and supplier they're using has an influence on their buying decision. So my suspicion is that we need to get businesses to incorporate the transparency, the messaging of what they have done to get out to the clients and customers, to attract the clients and customers that they want, basically.
I've just something occurred to me there straight away, John, actually. So obviously we go out and see clients. Clients come to see us, or we do a lot on Zoom. But when we go out to see a client, or when the clients come into the offices to meet us, they're how they travel is an interesting question. So we're right behind the train station, so obviously public transport's a bit of a no-brainer. But one thing that just occurs to me that we should do at the end of our financial year, which has happened, is just a bit of a sort of study in terms of how many miles we've travelled public transport, how many miles we've cycled, how many miles we've driven, and how many hours on Zoom, and how many clients have come in, and that would just be interesting to do because it's interesting, but also then to look at, well, okay, what's next year going to look like, and can we take any steps?
So I think this is definitely the way forward, because we all want to be good, but if we can be good and save money, it's even better. So if we can document the saving per hour on Zoom compared to an hour meeting elsewhere plus the hour travel, if we can get that in pounds and pence, that's gonna, again, that's back to transparency, scientifically proven, documented. And
what I'm thinking there, back to the early conversation about numbers of smiles on your bike, right? So how many calories have you expended in exercising those miles, seeing clients? How many smiles have you reckon you've given and received? How much,
how many conversations you've had?
Yeah, how many conversations you've had, exactly. Yeah.
And the connection to the topical mental health.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
again, we should be sociable. Morning, Sarah. Do you want to say a little bit about who you are, please?
Oh yeah, sorry I hopped on late. I was actually in a meeting with the company I work for. Anyways, but I currently live in Italy, but I'm originally from the US. And I'm interning in the lead sustainability intern at a startup out of Austria. So one of my teammates actually sent this Zoom in one of our groups and was like, Sarah, I think you'd like this. And I was like, okay, I'll hop on after. So yeah.
So really appreciate that. So you are welcome to either say some interesting things that you know of that have actually worked, and you are also welcome to ask any questions at any level of science here, because we got a few experts here from science and from finance.
Okay, perfect.
And again, roughly, can you say what the business does?
Yeah, so it's called Grade Cloud 9, and we're basically a platform. Our goal is to be the sustainable version of Amazon. So any vendor that wants to sell on our platform, we have an internal vendor assessment based on the SDGs and ISO 14001. So anybody who wants to sell with us has to get past that first. And then we have it on the platform. Basically, transparency is really important for us. So what aspects of sustainability from this product, what does the company focus on, and we want to give that all to our consumers. And then we also have an NGO side where it's a platform called The Community, just for education and outreach, and for people to come together and learn, share ideas, like inspire each other. So that's kind of what we do. Yeah.
And again, I think this is going to start a trend. You are quite welcome to put your website in the chat. And
okay, perfect.
And again, if you're happy with that, there's going to be some notes made, and if you're happy, we'll at least put your website there. You can tell me if you want your name put on there, but you can have your website there. So I think this is a good time then to go round the room very quickly, what your main business does, and anything that what the connection with sustainability is, please. And so again, I think we'll start with Martin, please.
Oh. Right. I was just about to go and get my little notes.
But genuinely brief, please.
Brief. I can be brief if you want to be. Right. Morning, Sarah. Nice to see you. I think no, I'm not going to go to it. Right. My business, Seventh Wave, is a blogging platform. It's all to do with communication and publishing. So in terms of our sustainable footprint, we've put it all. We don't have offices. We don't. We're now what's a remote working business, but we are very keen on the social element and the health of the employees and workers we work with. It's part and parcel of my background. It's all to do with health, well-being, and education. So that's the thread that goes through it. So our sustainable thing, this business, I was going to say, the final thing was that this year I've decided that I cycle to all our business meetings. So that's, and Steve knows I've already done that. The first thing that went wrong was I got a puncture. So
again, bang over that. Bang.
I'm not going to tell the story, Jonathan. Next.
Bang the links in the chat, please. Steve.
No, yeah, go on.
Thanks, John. Yeah, so Stephen Dawson, I'm a director of a financial advisory company based in Sheffield. There's two advisors, myself and my colleague, a couple of people in the back office. We occupy this amazing repurposed building in Sheffield, which is the largest Grade 2 listed building in Europe. It was scheduled for demolition and got saved. It's huge, residential and commercially mixed. Lots of concrete, as you can see in the behind me. So far so good, but the temperatures have been a bit mild for the time of year, so we don't really know how it's going to perform in the winter, but it's really good so far. And yeah, we advise people on pensions is our main business, investments second, so non-pensions related investments, personal, family, commercial, charity. We do insurance, mortgages, all that kind of stuff. So we're kind of a full service financial advice practice with a keen interest, and we talked about briefly at the top of the call, keen interest in talking to people about their ethical and environmental interests, and looking to support those through their financial journeys, and whether that's through investing or doing things like using the pension to purchase land for projects, which I'm keen to talk about at some point on these meetings. So yeah,
thanks, Steve.
Bridgestone Financial Planning is a business.
Nice one, thanks, Steve. And John?
Yeah, I'm a genealogist and DNA researcher, but I'm also an activist with Sheffield, Cycle Sheffield. So it's a pressure group to force the council to actually do things properly as regards cycleways and making cycle infrastructure work in Sheffield. I'm also on the committee of Sheffield Green Spaces Forum, which is getting all the green spaces working together, sharing ideas and helping green spaces actually make the most of their green spaces in Sheffield.
Cool. And for myself, I've got a computer background. On the computer side, we make a big effort to refurbish computers and laptops to give them a longer life, which reduces carbon footprint everywhere. And I'm moving across to setting up Green Elephant consultancy on anything eco. And the unique aspect is that it's not just a tick box exercise. I want people to take genuine action that is scientifically proven and is just not greenwashing. Yeah. So thanks everybody. And yeah, Steve, do you want to do a couple of minutes on this multiplier effect? How we can make a bigger impact by where we push our money around?
Yeah, for sure. There's lots of research. I've cited historically some research from Nordia, who are the Scandinavian big pension provider. I mean, it's quite a complex area. So very simply, to sort of dissect it, the world of investment is basically there's two worlds actually. There's the world of passive investing. So what that means is you invest in things like, technically they're called exchange traded funds. You invest in things which aren't fund managed, basically. So there's no active fund manager choosing where your investments go. You basically invest, for example, in an index like the NASDAQ. So you might have, I don't know, 100,000 US, 100,000 sterling, whatever it is. You invest that in a tracker, and basically you're invested in that index, and therefore in the companies that are listed on that market. And there's no intelligence to it, and that's how it works. So that's one passive option. The second option is what's called active, and in the active fund management sector, you can choose a strategy. You can select what fund managers you go with. Now, there's a whole range, and actually I think passive is now bigger from an overall funds under management than active, but active is still very much there. Very different. They look and feel very differently. So if I relate this back to our situation, if I have a client with a pension and they're invested in, for example, with us, so I'm part of the St. James's Place franchise, I place a percentage of their pension into, for example, one of our impact investing funds, which is a sustainable and responsible fund. So that fund is designed to not invest in damaging stocks, companies, countries, but actually it's designed to invest in those businesses and potentially countries, but mainly businesses who've got some of the solutions. So they might be particularly medical focused. There might be hydrogen generating businesses that they've got some of the technology to solve how we get industrial quantities of hydrogen. There might be batteries for cars, electric batteries, wind farms, alternative renewable energy, whatever it is. There are some of the businesses which are designed to solve some of the problems. So that's hence the impact, that they've got a positive impact, even down to social. So an ESG fund, an environmental and social and governance fund, would not look at things like Facebook or Twitter, for example, because the view might be...
And Steve, can you explain, as a really simply for us, how investing in those funds is actually more efficient than how we spend $1 or pound retail?
Yeah, so the multiplier effect. So for example, we have this particular fund. It's run by a fund manager called Impax, IMPAX. So your let's say 50,000 sterling that you invest in that fund, that fund manager uses that money, but they also run funds for lots of other wealth managers. And so if we as we within St. James encourage Impacts, the fund manager, to manage our funds in a particular way, they will then look at that across the range of their other funds that they run, which will be a factor of more than the funds that we place with them. And what they are doing, because they are active fund managers, they are scrutinizing the companies where they are buying shares. So they're looking at things like governance. So if they see a company, go on the website, have a look at the board, and there's there might be like portraits of each of the board members. If all of those are white male over 50s, they'll look at that and say that ain't progressive, and they wouldn't touch it. They would look at the objectives of the company. So, for example, there's a lot of businesses, a lot of big businesses now, whereby the remuneration of their execs is split between their environmental and sustainable measurements and performance and the financial, and the ones I've looked at are 50-50, because that's recognizing that it's not just a question of measuring success in terms of financial performance. So they do that. So that fund manager does that, and then all of the fund managers that we use are signed up to what's called the UNPRI. That's UN Principles for Responsible Investing. So every single fund manager, the last two we closed out last year, every single fund manager that we employ subscribes to those principles. And then the assumption that those fund managers do the same across all of the other funds that they manage, that's when you get the multiplier. So by ethically investing your pension investments, whatever they are, you then buy into that multiplier effect.
And again, can you confirm what that roughly what that multiplier is, the actual number?
Yeah, I mean, the Nordic study is a classic one. I was trying to remember the numbers, but basically they said on an average pension over the lifetime of your pension, the impact of doing that, and I think from memory it was around 40 times. It's something like 40
it was
times,
a big number, wasn't it?
something like 40 times more effective than in your personal life, making every single possible change to a sustainable lifestyle. So that would be reducing flying, not eating meat, traveling sustainably, insulating your house, etc., etc. All of those things over your lifetime would be only 1/40th as effective as actually placing your investments, your pensions, etc., in a sustainable set of investments.
Absolutely fantastic, Steve. Any questions, Sarah?
So you're saying this is 40 times more effective, basically, because you're then funding these companies that are being able to push forward and do more good. That's what you're saying, and showing the market in that aspect how you want the market to shift, basically.
Exactly.
Okay.
Brilliant. Yeah. So thanks. We'll go round and round. What I'd like now is just some of the things that we've specifically done that we think are going in the right direction. And again, I'm going to pick on Martin first. So
Pick on me.
two or three things that you as a business have done that are just a step or two in the right direction towards genuine.
Well, just a quick one to go step back to what Steve's comments. Is my initial reactions to that if my investments are going to get 40 times the effect, then why should I bother to do anything myself? Why don't I spend my time getting somebody who's 40 times more effective than me? That's not the message I know Steve wants to put across. But as an individual, I'm the business. I've taken a lifelong business life, and decided how I feel I want to my contribution to sustainability. So the one thing that I'm going to be really simple. One thing I've decided that we only have our meetings on bikes. Now I can do that. Is a pain in the ass. I can tell you that now. But the interesting about that particular exercise, which I've started this month, so it's new. I've had a bike for ages. I've cycled for years. It's not that, but I've actually made the positive decision. I will only cycle. I got a puncture. I'll explain the story. I was pissed off, late to the meeting. Got there in a state, hated every moment of it. Wished I'd never done it, and then calmed down. I then went home via a small business based at the station, and within 5 minutes I was back to normal, thinking very positively, because the guy walked in there, sweaty, irritated. He says, "I'll do it for a tenner." He put him in a tube in, blew it all up, did it all for me and everything else, and I cycled home. He is now a client.
Yeah,
Rather bizarrely.
nice one.
And they were very okay, he's free at the moment, but the idea that, you know, the conversation that resulted from that disaster, both was incredibly positive. So it's the engagement. We have two things we have a problem with.
And I'm the only bit I'm intrigued about. You're not going to include public transport.
No, I do include public transport, because now I can get free public transport, and I only use it because it's free. In a long time ago, when I was a student, probably Sarah's age, it was 5p going everywhere on a single thing. That was a sustainable business plan, which was destroyed by politics.
Yeah,
So,
and interesting you said that. I know this is getting a little bit political, but I'll allow it today.
we can don't, yeah.
So in London, you get
Mhm.
free travel at 60.
Yep. But
And
now,
it-
did you know that our South Yorkshire branch, we're in Sheffield, they also work in London. The cards, I can travel free in London.
Okay,
Same
so I just looked on the Sheffield
Mhm.
council website, and it says 66, 67.
It is pensionable age, yeah.
Yeah. So
But this card, it doesn't say in any way, does it say this card is outside South Yorkshire, because it's a South Yorkshire card. But I can travel anywhere in England free on public transport.
but you 60 or 66? You're not 66.
I'm 66, yeah.
Ah, I keep forgetting.
Sorry about that.
So
yeah.
anyway, so that
I
was
put it
just
on
a
my
good
thought.
example. It was just a good example of leveling up, where London is a special case, 60, rest of the country, 66 to get
Well,
you.
I didn't know that, but because I've just, I was blind to that. But they're not advertising it enough. It was really interesting. What did was the bus driver accepted it, but the machine didn't. So I was sat there in a trying to jump on a bus in London yesterday, and I was happy to do it when I flashed the card at his face, but mechanically the actual swipe card didn't work.
Interesting.
So there is a gap between delivering the science, delivering the technology.
Nice one. Yes, thanks, Martin.
Anyway, there you go.
Sarah, as a business, and when I say, so are you an employee or as it were?
Yeah, so I'm an intern.
Yeah. So just speaking generally, but more business related rather than personally. What are you actually doing at the moment that's in the right direction, eco wise?
So I would say similar. It's like how you're saying remote. We're fully remote, which helps cut down our carbon emissions. And a project that I'm working on currently. So every month I calculate carbon emissions of our internal team. So based on the hours you work, the coefficient associated with your country, things like that, as well as our data storage. So what we're saving on our cloud, how much emissions that is bringing up. And then our goal, we have not launched yet. We're close to it. Our goal is that within 1 year of launch, we're carbon neutral as an internal team. And so basically I'm working to figure out who do we want to work with to offset these carbon emissions, because realistically, also a little pessimistically, I don't think planting trees is what is offsetting our carbon. And so I'm looking for companies that prove transparently, without a doubt, that we are working to offset carbon emissions and that we're putting it towards something that's positive rather than just investing in these projects that are good and they have good intentions, but they can't quantify what they're doing for us. And so how are we supposed to quantify
Yeah,
the
so
emissions?
I've got a couple of questions back at you on that specific one. What would convince you that a project was genuine and you could believe the numbers?
Right. So a company that I actually had just come across and reached out to is called compensators.org, and basically they're based out of Germany. And so in the
name, please.
Compensators.org.
Oh, please bang it in the chat if you can.
I will. Yeah. So they're based out of the EU, and in the European Union, the emissions trading scheme basically has these emission allowances that these companies can buy. And so what this organization does is when you donate to them, they buy the emissions off of the market. That way, no company can possibly buy those and use that emission allowance. And so it's basically taking that allowance out of the company, out of the like circulation and out of what a company would be able to emit. And so for me, that is truly compensating, right? Like you're taking that allowance out of the market and now nobody can use it and those emissions can never come to be. So for me, that's something that I find they have a very like transparent way of reporting. They have a very transparent financial system. And so for me, that's something that's very quantifiable and how like I know how much we're emitting. And so I can pay to take that emission off the market, basically.
And my second question was, how transparent are you publishing a summary of your own results?
Right. So we have not yet. That's a good question. And because we are talking about ESG reports and CSR reports within our first year of launch. And so basically, I think that is a great idea of something that we could do as soon as we do launch, like transparently report what we're emitting and exactly how we're compensating for it, I think would be a great plan for us to do.
Because my feeling is that transparency is key. You know, even if it's a summary of a summary, and even if you say this isn't perfect, or this is approximately right. So around the room, Martin, Steve,
well, just
any questions for Sarah?
A quick question, yes. Sorry, is it just me? But I'm not quite getting. You buy your emissions, so you establish
So
what your rates are, or whatever. Yeah, go on.
Right. So in the EU, there's like a foundation called the Emissions Trading Scheme. And so basically these companies, like production companies, can buy these carbon emissions that allow them to pollute more. So like the trading scheme gives these companies an allowance, but then there's extra circulating on the market that they can buy to increase their emissions allowance, basically. And so then what we would do through compensators.org is they buy that emissions allowance. That way, no other company can buy them and actually emit that amount without, because if you emit more than you have an allowance for, then you're like charged and taxed basically as a penalty off of it.
So who regulates that then? Because that sounds like a finite sort of, finite money. Why don't we quantitatively ease it when we want to?
Right. And that is the thing too, is the trading scheme is supposed to be doing that in accordance with the Paris Agreement, but currently the allowances they have out go way past what the Paris Agreement allows us to. And so it's meant to regulate, but it's not regulating.
Well, I would be really, well, exactly. So I would be really interested in simplifying that, exactly what you've just described. And if you, outside this, meeting, whatever, we can share it or bring it in so that I can genuinely understand what my targets are,
right,
as a very small company versus a European whatever it is,
giant,
because lots of people doing the same thing would make some sense, if you had something you could trust and that body is not going to change the rules halfway through I'm interested. So there you go. Right, okay, now I
the concept is good, but then the execution, we're not there yet.
Exactly. Right. But I would be very interested in be part and parcel of how that it would impact my business.
Right.
And how I would get more business on the back of it. And similarly, by having a quick glance at your website, we're all on the same route. And if we are joined up in that thinking, then we might make the impact we're wanting.
Nice one. Right, Martin, Steve, any question for Sarah?
No, I mean, you had me with your opening statement around competing with Amazon. So that's I mean, all power to you on that. The whole thing about purchasing carbon credits and offsetting. I mean, I know there's a lot of debate about it, but I think the sentiment and the impact, I think, are generally proven. The sentiments, the sentiments plaudable, and the impact does work. I think it's a step towards towards being fully sustainable without having to do that. But in the short term, it's inevitably going to be needed. But yeah, no, I'm interested in the platform. And well, I mean, where are you in terms of launch?
Great. So our community platform is separate. Our community is looking to launch in the next month, I would say. We're in the final stages of testing. And then our
Yeah.
selling platform, we're also in the process of testing that. So basically working with the web developers and getting our platform ready for that. Yeah, so should be very close.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Sarah. Absolutely very intriguing. Yeah, again, if you don't mind, if you wouldn't mind popping in your email just directly to me, if you don't want to make it public. So I'm going to put my computer repair hat on, and as an impact that the Fix My PC business has made, and I did some calculations. There's a certain carbon emission impact of making a laptop, for the sake of argument. The people like Microsoft and IBM, Lenovo have done the calculation with an assumed life of the laptop, for example, of 3 years. So that means that if I can get a laptop to last or refurbish an extra year, then I can sort of get an approximation of the carbon emission saving. And I did those calculations for some of the laptops that we refurbished last year. And I think, again, probably don't quote me, but I think it was like 50 tons or something. It was a stupidly high number. So that's interesting. And so the second order effect I can have on serving other businesses is to extend the life of their computer kit by refurbishing. So if I can get it from 3 to 4 years of all the businesses I interact with, that is a second order, quite a big second order effect. So that's just one example for me. Right. So that's where we were going. I think before the recording started, I think I mentioned that for any business, it's the quick wins that you can get today are thinking about your remote working, anything to do with transport and commuting, swapping between cars, public transport, bikes, and the meetings and meeting locations, like as Martin was saying, a meeting location near a public transport hub will usually turn out better. The other one for any business, your energy supplier, choosing a greener electricity supply. You can almost do it overnight. Another one is okay, so the physics is heating is much more expensive than lighting. Anything to do with heat is a lot of power. So things like changing the timers and thermostat level for any of the heating in any of your buildings is quite a quick impact. And in general, timers to make sure you're not accidentally running electrical equipment overnight that doesn't need to. So
we've got our ceramic heaters rigged up to an app, so they're all Wi-Fi connected, so you can program them.
Nice. And I say, we know that some electrical equipment has to run overnight, like sometimes network access storage hard drives, but most of your computer equipment probably doesn't need to run overnight. And obviously the lighting doesn't need to run when you're not there. And then the next level, which you can't do day one, but needs to be on your agenda, is checking the credentials of your suppliers for anything you buy, from electricity to computer kit to consumables to everything, or your manufacturing ingredients, and then you might, moving forward, want to look at your clients and see what sort of impact, environmental impact your clients are having on the planet, and maybe just see whether you want to either talk to them about it or whether you want to deal with them at all, or just being aware. You know, it's all very well and good you being a green business, but if you're helping a total disaster business to operate, you've got some, again, difficult ethical questions to ask. Right. So
I posted a link to that Nordy report. It's from
lovely.
2017, so it's 5 years old, but I'm sure it'll still stand up for page 22 is the key one. It was 27 times, not 40. I was slightly out.
Yeah, and I'm going to appreciate a one-to-one discussion with Sarah about the transparency and efficiency of the different carbon offsetting programs, because there seems to be an, as they say, an infinite range. There are some that are pure charlatans, and there's some that seem to be really genuinely transparent and efficient. So how to choose them, it seems, you know, the guide to choosing an offsetter, it could be a very interesting document to put together.
Can I just throw this one in on the basis that it appears to me there's a massive division. There's existing businesses and new businesses, and my sustainable ambitions versus business success. If you end up as a threat, or you might study dismantling traditional business success with your sustainable ambitions, that's going to be a big question. But so, just as a going forward on this forum, can I just throw this one thing in terms of, because we're just, so we're not bouncing around too much, is that we pick on one theme and then explore that, and then go on to the next one. So I love Sarah's email address. That's a great one. Can I adopt it?
That's my school email.
Now your credentials are coming out, if I'm reading that properly.
Yeah. So what I beg to suggest, I'm going to stop the recording now.
Before I go off piece, Jimmy.